Welcome back to the King's Corner, the place for all things Bethesda. I am the KingFanMan. Just recently, Noclip released a documentary on the making of Fallout 76 that had some great behind-the-scenes info on Bethesda Game Studios, on Fallout 76, and even on the mysterious game Starfield. I'm going to be referencing that documentary several times in this short video, so I will link the full documentary in the description below. If you haven't seen it, you really should, along with the history of Bethesda Game Studios. Both documentaries are excellent. Now, obviously, there has been some controversy surrounding the announcement of Bethesda Game Studios' new game, Fallout 76. Since it is something brand new, being an entirely online game, this Noclip documentary gave us some great insight as to how this product came to be. It was not as some had thought or even accused Bethesda Game Studios of chasing the modern trends, but it was actually something that they always do. For many years, Todd Howard has stated that they have tried to put a multiplayer mode on all their games, but for some reason or another, they have had to scrap them. Going all the way back to Morrowind, Bethesda Game Studios have tried to put a multiplayer mode on their games. Fallout 76 is actually the multiplayer mode for Fallout 4 that got way too big.
76 is the multiplayer design from Fallout 4.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
No one said that?
No.
It is. Hey, should we do multiplayer? Probably not. What would it be? Okay, it would be this. Let's talk it through. That's pretty awesome. And then you kind of, you put it away. So, all right, let's do our thing. And then every once in a while you keep talking about like, hey, we should have done that, or we should do it. And then, as Fallout 4 is going on, it becomes no, we should really do it, like, as its own thing.
As far back as 2013, the team was conceptualizing what a Fallout multiplayer mode might look like, but the idea was too big at the time, and so it was put to one side so the studio could focus on the single-player game.
So Todd Howard said since it was too big, they didn't include it in Fallout 4, and said just set it aside. But they didn't forget about it, because they really liked it. They wanted to use it, but for now, they would have to wait. Because not only was it too big, Bethesda Game Studios also did not have the experience with online games, which are totally different than single-player games. For one, getting quests to work.
Mindset change. You have folks who have been making single-player quests here for so long. And what does it mean to be able to support more than one player? So there's a lot of things that go into that. Oh, how many people read a note at once, or who gets this bit of the story? And those are things we've never had to think about before. It's just stored on the client or the server. Like those crazy, like those, what does that mean? Like things that, there are reasons why we never got into multiplayer before.
So it is June 2015 and Fallout 4 is being announced at E3. And so is the online game BattleCry by the studio by the same name from Austin, Texas. These two studios, both being studios published by Bethesda Softworks, would be set up on the E3 floor just a few feet away from each other, and it was during this week that a great relationship began and certain discussions about an online game design. It was shortly after E3 that BattleCry Studio went publicly silent, and we were all told that they were now a support studio within Bethesda Softworks, where actually now we know that they almost immediately went to work with Bethesda Game Studios to help them with the Fallout Online project. So as Austin took their knowledge and their game design, they took that and converted it into the Bethesda Game Studios Fallout.
ZeniMax had opened BattleCry Studios, which was made up of a lot of MMO experts in the Austin area. People who Chris and Doug go way back to Ultima Online and Star Wars Galaxies and Star Wars Republic. Like, this is amazing staff of people, and they were building a really cool game. But the lead programmer on 76, Jason, had been the client lead on Star Wars. He knew them all.
Right.
And we were talking about it, and he's like, hey, those are the guys to do it. And I'll admit, I was like, hey, we could hire. I'd gotten approval to hire, server back-end people and all of that. But I've been through that. And hey, if you have a team that works really well together, that is interested in working with you on it, like, hey, let's try to do that. So they started it before we shipped Fallout 4.
So Austin has secretly been working with Bethesda Game Studios since the summer of 2015. And they were made an official member of Bethesda Game Studios in late 2017. So if Austin designed all the quests and is literally making the game work, then what did the main Maryland studio do on Fallout 76? Well, of course, it was their original idea, and they very roughly developed the system, but it was Austin that worked it all out. Then what did Maryland do? Well, Maryland did what they do best. They built the world to put this massive game in. And they knew they had to build it much more massive than anything else they had ever made. In fact, after much thought, they decided to build not just a city like a normal Fallout, they built the entire state of West Virginia. Yes, the entire state.
Every game starts with a map. Fallout 76, we decided, it's going to be set in West Virginia, and the first thing we did is we made the map. I believe it's always been 4 times the size of Fallout 4. It was pretty big. Todd sits with designers and to figure out, what story points we're going to have.
There was just the small handful of us leads, deciding what to do, starting to lay out the map of the world, and figuring out how to take an entire state and shrink it down. Because before we did, a city and then the area around it, but we decided to do all of West Virginia.
Now, many will love to know that now that the game is done, Austin will again be the studio taking the lead on working on all the DLCs and updates for Fallout 76 so that Maryland and Montreal can work on Starfield.
The game is released, much of Maryland and Montreal will move onto Starfield. Maryland will continue to be in charge of the creative direction of 76, but the majority of live game support will be done in Austin.
In fact, other than the time on the world building and the last 9 months where each studio was playing the game to make sure that it was right, other than those 2 times, Austin has been the main studio working on Fallout 76. The main Maryland studio has been working on Starfield, at least in part, since 2013. What's my point? 2 quick points since this is not a Starfield video. Number 1, Starfield is a bigger project than Fallout 76.
The biggest, most epic science fiction thing you could possibly imagine. And that's something we've talked about for a long time and kind of picked away at. And now we feel we're kind of, what's the right way to say it without spoiling anything? We are uniquely positioned to pull this game off.
And number 2, I think we're going to get it sooner than people think. Either this coming year in 2019 or the next in 2020. And finally, let me end with something good. Microtransactions. Now wait, before you dislike me and shut it off, let me explain. I know we hate that word, but number 1, they will only be cosmetic. Number 2, they keep the servers up and running. And number 3, and this is the best part, they keep the DLCs, are you ready? They keep the DLCs free. Now I will go for that. In other words, not like in Skyrim, not like in Fallout where we had to pay for the DLCs. If we allow microtransactions into Fallout 76, the DLCs will be free.
76 is a full-priced game, but the team is planning to support the game with free updates for years to come. The game will feature microtransactions, but Bethesda told us that these will only come in the form of cosmetics. Bethesda said that this is a crucial element of allowing them to support dedicated servers and keep DLC free, and that any purchasable cosmetics available will also be available to earn through gameplay.
Well, I hope you learned a little bit about where Fallout 76 came from, and maybe a few other things. I sure did in my research. Well, I want to thank you for stopping by the King's Corner today. If you haven't checked out my Patreon page, please do. Instead of asking for money first, I want to say a super huge thank you to my 4 special Patreon supporters. Y'all mean more to me than you know. By the way, you can become a Patreon supporter by pledging $1, $2, $5, $10. Any amount would be awesome. And hey, if you're not a subscriber, we have the coolest community on this channel, and we would love to have you a part of it. Just touch that button. It's free. I am the KingFanMan, and I'll see you guys next time.